This is CBC Here and Now.
Well, this is not something that you'll see every day, but an Airbus Beluga has landed in St. John's.
This is actually a really rare thing. There's only 5 Belugas.
We got a plane like the Beluga coming in. As an enthusiast, you gotta come up, no question.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you why coming up.
People are worried, they're panicked.
A shocking increase. Residents of a St. John's condo building are reeling after they received news that their condo fees could skyrocket.
Really starting to feel the pace of the race and the excitement kind of rumbling around town.
After a COVID hiatus, Kane's quest is coming back to the big land, and organizers are looking for more volunteers. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. A unique plane touched down in St. John's today, capturing the attention of many aviation enthusiasts and people looking for a snap for social media. The Airbus Beluga landed at St. John's International Airport this morning, and it's carrying a satellite destined for the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. As Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton explains, the stop was for more than just fuel.
There was a rare Beluga sighting in St. John's today, but all eyes were on the skies, not the water.
This is actually a really rare thing. There's only 5 Belugas, not counting the XL Beluga, so it's a really rare sighting, and it's exciting for us to see this here today.
Earlier this week, Inmarsat Global loaded up the Beluga's belly with something that'll soon be on its way to outer space.
This is the Airbus Beluga Super Transporter. So it's actually at our St. John's Airport because it left Toulouse, France, carrying one of Inmarsat's latest satellites, and is on the way down to Cape Canaveral to go to the Kennedy Space Center.
This is what the giant plane is carrying, Inmarsat's I-6 F2 satellite. A news release from the company says it's the most sophisticated commercial communications satellite ever built, and Inmarsat St. John's office was a part of it.
Inmarsat is a remote satellite communication company. We actually operate in 40 different countries. We have a really nice presence here in St. John's. It's our actual biggest regional office, and we're responsible for doing satellite communication. We do it land, air, government services.
SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch Inmarsat's newest satellite next month.
There's going to be a lot of employees globally who are going to be heading down, so it's really much an exciting time for everyone working at Inmarsat, an exciting time for tech in Newfoundland working at Inmarsat.
Well, when we got a plane like the Beluga coming in, as an enthusiast, you gotta come up, no question.
It's only the second time that Airbus has transported a satellite like this, but it's his second time seeing a Beluga in the past few months.
Flight student out in Gander. I've already got my PPL, night rating, trained to be a commercial pilot, and actually in the fall it was in Gander, and funny enough, I happened to be flying at the exact moment it was in Gander, so when it took off, I was up in the air flying in what we call a downwind, and I saw it depart off of runway 13 in Gander. Much
like seeing the whale in the water, this Beluga attracted a lot of attention today.
I don't know a single person who doesn't look up in the sky when they hear an airplane or see one going by. It's just every human seems to be fascinated one way or another by aviation, and we see that today with the number of people that were here.
So the Airbus Beluga will be spending the night in St. John's before heading off to Florida tomorrow. But Rice says this won't be the last chance you'll get to see it. She says it's supposed to head back here on Sunday to refuel before making its way to Europe. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a Greats Cove woman was arrested and charged after she allegedly crashed her car, then boarded a school bus and assaulted students. Police say the crash involving the suspected impaired driver happened in Lower Island Cove, north of Carbonear, around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. A school bus came upon the scene and the driver stopped to offer help. The RCMP says the woman then got on the bus, which had students from grades 7 to 12 on board, and she assaulted 2 students. Another bus without students arrived and also stopped to help. Police say the woman then got on that bus and was kept there until they arrived. The 37-year-old is facing several charges, including assault, assaulting a police officer, and refusing to comply with a breath demand. Well, now to the courts, where there is a warning tonight over an increase in violent crime. Crown prosecutors say they're dealing with more and more violent cases, which means more complex files. Now, the association that represents those lawyers is speaking out, saying they need help from government. Here now's Ariana Kelland reports.
Dalton Hibbs leaves court on day 3 of his preliminary inquiry, charged with murder. Crown prosecutors say they're seeing more cases like these.
Firearms offenses, homicides, and just generally speaking, robberies and these kind of things, there's been a general increase.
And while Sean Patton says the severity of crime is rising, the number of people tasked with prosecuting those crimes is not.
We're not at the stage yet where we're not prosecuting matters because we don't have the resources. But we don't want to get to that stage.
Patton has been beating this drum for a while, warning of heavy caseloads landing on the backs of junior lawyers. Senior lawyers burnt out and leaving for better paying jobs with fewer cases.
We've seen a substantial increase in file loads, particularly here in St. John's, over the last, even from last year, we can see approximately a 20% increase in file loads.
The latest numbers from Statistics Canada show a dramatic jump in the Violent Crime Severity Index from 2020 to 2021, an increase of nearly 20%. There are 12 murder and manslaughter cases working their way through the courts in the province right now. Crown attorneys don't get paid overtime, but Patton says they're putting in the hours.
What's happening is they're not saying I can't do it, they're doing it, but they're burning out. And that's another problem we're seeing now. We're not having good retention in our office.
This internal document obtained by CBC News in 2021 spells out those concerns. High caseloads, heavy material. On top of that, prosecutors here get paid less than many other jurisdictions in Canada. Patton says the association and government are talking, but now he says it's time for action. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, that sunshine sure felt nice today across a good chunk of the island. We're sitting under a ridge of high pressure that is starting to move in anyway, but we're still seeing some activity as far as snowfall goes along the west coast. But there's that ridge of high pressure, lots of cold air as well up across parts of Labrador, and that cold air is sinking further south. But our attention turns to this area of low pressure across Ontario, bringing a winter storm. In fact, some people at home just said they heard thunder snow in Niagara. So that system is headed our way. We're looking at some rain, some wind, and some snow. And Environment Canada has issued a number of warnings across the province. Those wind warnings essentially spanning from the west coast along the south coast and the northeast coast of the island. Northern Peninsula, you are under a winter storm warning, at least the eastern portion of the Northern Peninsula. Same thing along the Straits. And then we start to get into that winter weather. Wind warnings as well as snowfall warnings have been issued. And we're looking at this continuing. We're also going to talk about the potential for some significant waves along the south coast as we head into Thursday night. I'll get into the details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a daytime armed robbery in St. John's has police looking for any dash cam, cell phone, or surveillance video from the area. The robbery happened around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. A man wearing a gray jacket and white mask held up a business on Water Street in the Ayers Cove area. He had his hood pulled up over a black winter hat. Police say he was carrying a concealed weapon and got away with some money, but the RNC isn't saying how much. Well, an Innu band in eastern Quebec is suing Hydro-Quebec for more than $2 billion. The First Nation claims the Churchill Falls hydroelectric station has destroyed a significant part of their traditional territory. The lawsuit alleges Hydro-Quebec and Churchill Falls Labrador Corporation illegally appropriated Innu lands and have benefited from the power generated there for decades. The band claims the mega project's reservoirs and more than 1,000 kilometers of transmission lines flooded and destroyed parts of their traditional territory and disrupted the community's traditional activities. The Innu Nation of Labrador similarly sued the two corporations for $4 billion in 2020. Well, the trial that's looking at the enrollment process for membership in Qalipu First Nation has heard its last witness, and lawyers are now preparing to make their final arguments at Supreme Court in St. John's. Mark Quinn is covering the case and has this report.
It's been a long week for dozens of people who've been in court since the first day of this trial. Yesterday, the final witness was one of the founders of the movement that led to the establishment of the Qalipu Mi'kmaq First Nation. Don Oliver was born and raised in St. George's on the island's west coast. He was one of a handful of people in the 1970s who created the Federation of Newfoundland Indians. Oliver eventually became the FNI's president. The group's principal goal was to gain federal recognition for all Indigenous people in this province, something that was denied when Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949. Oliver appeared by video conference from his home in BC. He told the court he's known he was Mi'kmaq since the day he was born, but that's not how the federal government sees it. Oliver was enrolled in the newly established Qalipu Band, but after more than 100,000 people applied for band membership and a supplemental agreement was made to limit the number of band members, Oliver lost his status. This court case is seeking to have the 2013 supplemental agreement between the Federation of Newfoundland Indians and the federal government struck down. Lawyers are expected to begin making their final summary arguments on Tuesday, and it could be several months before Justice Valerie Marshall hands down a decision. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
1 week after Troy Blais went missing, there's still no sign of the 41-year-old. Searchers on the Port-au-Port Peninsula have been on the ground, on the water, and in the air, and we're still looking today. Blais was last seen in the Blue Beach area of the peninsula. Searchers were called in Saturday, and shortly after, his ATV was located in the waters of Black Duck Brook at the bottom of a cliff. Staying with the Port-au-Port Peninsula, we have an update now on a story we brought you last night. The blockage of a road leading to a wind-powered test site is still impassable in mainland today. It's day 9 of the protest, which is preventing World Energy GH2 from working on future weather evaluation towers. Now, the province says the work has been approved. Here now's Troy Turner has the details.
Crown Lands Division of the provincial government has issued 2 temporary licenses to World Energy GH2. This allows the company to construct temporary wind monitoring devices in the area, something many mainland residents oppose.
The licenses also allow construction of a half-kilometer long section of a new access road off an existing road known in mainland as Local Road. It's on this road that construction has led to runoff of debris that mainland residents say is affecting their supplementary water supply. Many of them have been taking shifts around the clock to ensure no further work takes place. The province issued a statement on the work earlier today. It says once data collection is complete, quote, the licenses terminate and the conditions include the need for the site to be returned to a condition acceptable to the Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture. As for the water quality, the province says it collected samples from LaQuinte Brook on 2 occasions. The most recent was November 24th. Quote, results indicated that turbidity and color were elevated, but no other water quality concerns were identified. Officials conducting a site visit in early December have indicated that silt control measures were installed at the culvert replacement locations. Since the watershed is not considered a protected area, the road upgrading work did not require any permits under the Water Resources Act.
The department also said it's working with the local service district about the process for protection of the watershed area, as well as the collection of samples to monitor drinking water quality. Troy Turner, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, some condo residents in St. John's say they were recently met with some unexpected and troublesome news. They learned that monthly condo fees are set to almost quadruple in the near future. Here now's Jessica Singer has more.
Some residents of Brookfield Estate condos say they are anxious about the future of the place they call home.
Unit owners say they received a letter last Friday telling them the condo's insurance premiums are increasing by more than 500%. This means residents could have to pay more than triple what they currently do in condo fees.
The letter told residents to attend a special emergency meeting on Tuesday night, where they'd vote on how to cover the high increase in insurance premiums. Unit owners say no decision was reached at the meeting because they want more time to look into other options. Greg Collins has lived in a Brookfield Estates condo since 2017.
Shocked, obviously. Anger quickly set in.
He says emotions among the condo owners are running high.
People are worried. They're panicked. There hasn't been any straight answers yet. We truly don't know our path forward right now. So people are just kind of really on edge, just looking for answers.
Brookfield Estates broker is insurance company Aon. In the letter sent to residents, the condo corporation said Aon's reasoning for the increases was a fire that occurred in one of the units in early October.
Unit owners say another special meeting is in the works. By that time, they hope to have identified other insurance arrangements. Jessica Singer, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to Labrador. In just over a month, the long-awaited Kane's Quest will finally kick off. One of the toughest snowmobile races in the world was delayed a year because of the pandemic. Racers from as far away as Finland will soon be arriving in the Big Land. And to make it all happen, the event is looking for more volunteers. Here Now's Daryl Din spoke to an organizer.
Things are getting moving now, like really starting to feel the pace of the race and the excitement kind of rumbling around town.
And can you tell me a bit about what you're looking for? Because I know you're looking still for more volunteers. What are some of the volunteers that you need for the event?
Of course. So we have a lot of different positions that we require a lot of help from volunteers. I guess the main things would be during race week, and that's all of our events really. So we're looking at we have Fan Day, which is an extension of Fan Night. We are deciding that we're going to change that into a full day event because we have a lot of people interested in it, and we want that engagement with the racers. So I suppose we decided that was going to turn into a much bigger event than what it used to be. So we're looking for a lot more volunteers, almost as a double event. We have gear checkers, trackers, we have all kinds of stuff happening in headquarters, we have start and finish line, lots of fun things going on. I will mention, though, that our deadline for that is February 3rd, and only because we start our training the following week on the 7th and 8th of February. So we're looking for everyone to try and finish up before then.
And how many volunteers does it take to run Kane's Quest?
That's a great question. We would never be able to run this race without the volunteers we have, and we really have a ton of amazing people all over Labrador helping us out. I would say roughly about 500. From checkpoint to checkpoint and even locally.
With the volunteers, what can they expect with their training?
So what we're going to do this year is we're going to do a little bit of hands-on training, and I guess we're going to do some walkthrough on how to do some timekeeping as well as tracking. We have lots and lots of stuff happening at Start Line, as you can imagine. There's gear checks going on, there's trackers being installed, there's people lining up for the race start. So a lot of that kind of stuff I would say is most important.
What are the snow ice conditions looking like across the region?
So far we're keeping a very close eye on things. We have a lot of people on the coast that we're chatting with every single day. At this point we're feeling pretty confident that the race will move forward. We're super excited to see everyone and hope to see you on Start Line.
Well, this rare to us bird is normally only seen between Alaska and Montana. So how in the world did it wind up on the east coast of Canada? We're looking for answers. We'll have them next.
It is going to be a windy day tomorrow, along with some rain and some wind. Also some high surf. We'll talk all about it coming up.
And how many books and space does $4 million get you? A lot, based on the look and size of this brand new library, all set to open in Conception Bay South. We'll give you a look inside before the doors officially open tomorrow.
while I was doing my irradiation, my photography actually was my coping mechanism.
The crow was flying by Signal Hill and he had an egg in his mouth.
There's a bit of tension there sometimes, but I'm becoming very good at diffusing that.
I find black and white, it draws your attention into what's happening and you can kind of capture the emotions a little bit more.
You know, there are lots of things going on, chances for you to capture moments that people love to see.
This weather forecast has been brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. Whatever you're up for this winter, discover experience packages at winterupnl.ca.
Well, we enjoyed some beautiful sunshine today, but it was much cooler than it was yesterday.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't, especially with that wind chill. It felt much colder today, but yes, I will take all the sunshine anytime we get it, for sure. Let's take a look at how much colder it was today across the province. Up across Labrador, biggest drop in temperatures, between 12 and 15 degrees colder. And across the island, well, that was dipping into the northern peninsula, but across the island, between 4 and about 9 degrees colder today. So certainly lots of cold air, and we factor in that wind chill. It is pretty chilly out there, feeling more like -9 in St. John's right now. So if you're planning on heading out, make sure you bundle up. And then same thing through central, west coast, and especially up across the Big Land. -39 is what it's feeling like right now in Nain. These wind chill values are going to continue as we head through the night tonight, and that's because, take a look at these temperatures, down to -33 tonight in Lab City, and then into the -20s for a good chunk of the Big Land. Northern Peninsula and central Newfoundland, especially in those low-lying areas, those temperatures will dip into the -teens. Otherwise, we will sit well below zero, between -7 and -9. But again, not a whole lot of wind to speak of, but we're still looking at those wind chills in the -teens overnight tonight. Taking a look at what's going on right now, we've got an area of low pressure heading across Ontario at the moment and bringing rain right along the eastern coast of North America, and that is going to head our way as we head through tomorrow. Right now, not a whole lot happening, but we do have some onshore flurries, and this has been happening for a good chunk of the afternoon today in and around the Corner Brook area, and that will typically or generally continue as we head through the overnight, I should say. I put the temperatures on here for you just to show you what's going to happen, because we will see some mild air move in as we head through tomorrow. Now, overnight tonight, just cold. It will be chilly pretty much across the board, like I showed you a little bit earlier, but we will see that snow start as we head through mid-morning for the southwest coast, spread its way north and east as we head through the afternoon. And then note what happens with those temperatures, already up above zero by the afternoon, and they'll continue to rise, which will change all of that precip over to rain, which will be heavy at times for a good chunk of the south coast. And this snow will work its way towards the northern peninsula, eventually southeastern Labrador as well as we get through to the supper hour, and continue through a good chunk of the evening. Now, by the time we get to 5, 6 o'clock, that snow will start to push its way further north, but it will change right over to rain very quickly. And very heavy at times. But look at the temperatures by the time we get to 8, 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, somewhere between 6 and 7 degrees for the south coast. Now, northern peninsula, you're going to see some pretty stormy conditions before that changeover with these gusty winds as well. Same thing along the strait. But past midnight, that should change over to rain, and conditions will greatly improve. But this is when we're going to start to see some of that heavier rain head further east for eastern areas of the island. Eventually, the Avalon will see that in the early morning hours, but that big warm-up will be accompanying that. So 6 to 8 degrees through the overnight period. By the time we get into noon on Friday, that should be said and done. We'll still see some lingering flurries and maybe a few periods of drizzle, but other than that, things will start to quiet down. As far as snowfall amounts go, the heaviest will fall pretty much along Churchill Valley and through to coastal areas of Labrador. We're talking between 15 to 25 centimeters of snow, certainly possible. And then along the straight northern peninsula, about 10 to 15. Not quite significant, not very significant, I should say, across the island, but still between, say, 2 to 10 centimeters centimeters falling before that changes over to rain, which again will be heavy at times, but along the south coast, that's where the heaviest rain will fall. Could be talking about between 50 to 75, but really along the coast, a good chance to see 20 to 40 millimeters, and then less as you head further north, but still somewhere between 5 to as much as 20 millimeters possible. The biggest story with this really is the wind, which will ramp up tomorrow evening, especially for those of you along the west coast prone to southeasterlies. You could be talking about gusts between 130 to 140 kilometers per hour, but widespread across the island between 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. That will continue through the night, especially for the Avalon and even southeastern portions of Labrador. That will eventually ease as we head into the afternoon hours on Friday. They'll still stay very brisk, between 60 to 80, but we will finally see some relief as Saturday rolls around. We'll talk about the long-range forecast when I come back.
The Nova Scotia birding community is all a Twitter. A bird that normally travels between Alaska and Montana has somehow made its way east. The gray-crowned rosy finch is the talk of the town. So how did it get there and how long will it stay? The CBC's Colleen Jones tries to find those answers from Green Bay.
Gray-crowned rosy finch has everyone in a flutter. I need to get to Green Bay for this story. First a trip over the LaHave, then down the winding road to here to find out how did a small bird who's supposed to be out in the Pacific Northwest wind up on the Atlantic Northeast. I'm greeted by not the gray-crowned rosy finch, however, but ducks? Lynette Barnes loves to take care of whatever flies in here. But for now, let's get these ducks flying out of here in the hope we'll see the rosy finch. As Lynette puts out her daily feed for the chickadees, blue jays, and ravens, she recently spotted a different bird.
And he was up in this tree, shining rusty gold from the sun. I took a picture thinking it was a starling. But then over that week, I kept seeing this bird come in, and I said to my husband, I have to get a picture.
Those hours paid off, and when the gray-crowned rosy finch flew back, she got more pictures. Then she confirmed what she was seeing with her bird app.
And it came up as gray-crowned rosy finch, and I didn't believe it. So no, I didn't, because they live in Alaska, up high in the mountains. They live in Montana.
Ever since the confirmation, birders have flocked here, including all the very best Nova Scotia bird photographers.
This is definitely the biggest bird this year.
Is this like fishing where I should be quiet?
Good luck on me being quiet. Fulton Lavender and Richard Hatch have just arrived, armed with binoculars. They're hoping to get lucky.
Yeah, it's of the subspecies of gray-crowned rosy finch called Hepburns, which is even more rare. It's one of the rarer of the gray-crowned rosy finches.
Searching for one bird is like looking for the proverbial needle in the haystack.
Just going to walk down here a little bit. I wonder if this...
Richard follows a hunch and heads over closer to Lynette's neighbors. His hunch pays off.
Oh, he's got it. He's got it. I knew it. Oh, I'm just telling him thank you for letting me have the great pleasure of seeing him.
Meanwhile, inside Lynette's house, her friend Lynn is armed with her camera.
How many pictures have you captured of the rare bird?
0.
She is patiently waiting, watching the sky and the trees for a sign. Any sign.
100% it. That's the stupid bird.
Really?
Yeah. That's the bird right there. I literally caught the bird. Oh my God, I caught the bird.
Let's see.
I'm like 100% sure.
This is the power of the gray-crowned rosy finch. Maybe a once-in-a-lifetime sighting of a bird that's very far from home.
I got the bird! This is the map that gets generated.
Now, how long will it stay in Nova Scotia? Well, this gray-crowned rosy finch just might start calling Green Bay home. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Green Bay.
Well, it's a new chapter for the town of CBS. This 8,000 square foot, $4 million library opens tomorrow. We'll tell you about all the bells and whistles that come with it coming up. Well, the people of Conception Bay South have a new place to check out some books and a whole lot more. This $4 million state-of-the-art library opens tomorrow. And joining me now to talk more about that is Ed Lawler, the secretary for the library board. So can you tell us a bit about this brand new library?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that citizens of CBS are just excited, and our more than 10,000 patrons of this library are certainly very, very excited about this news. Since 1982, we've been lobbying for a new library structure in CBS, and to see this come to fruition is just amazing.
And it seems like a really big deal, especially in this day and age, to have a new library. What kind of a difference do you think this is going to make to the community?
I think it will make a tremendous difference because I will call it the archaic view of libraries is that it was a book lending institution. And it is an archaic view because libraries today are so different. If you talk to the Provincial Libraries Board, they will say it's programs, 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 because libraries today are offering programs in literacy, story times, reading programs, book clubs, and they're opening up to the community. The potential for community involvement here is tremendous. Libraries, even though you will see there's lots of books here and this sort of thing, but you will also see the innovation that's involved with libraries as you scan through here. I see libraries as the community, as people from many, many different walks of life and many different age groups that are able to come in here and see some niche that they're interested in, whether it be certainly reading or video, and also to continue with our, so importantly, our preschool literacy programs and our storytime programs. I mean, we were always in a situation where we couldn't accommodate a lot of the young families because of space limitations.
And joining me now is manager Andrew Lockhart. So I know this place has some interesting features. Can you show us some of the features of the library?
Sure, Carolyn. So one of the nice things we have is we're the first place in Newfoundland, the first place in Canada, I believe, to have a self-checkout tablet system. So what's nice is you can scan a card, enter your PIN. You're dispensed a tablet. When they're returned, they're charged up, they're wiped, so everything's sort of anonymous and set up. And when you load up a tablet, we're going to get all of our apps and our different features are sort of preloaded on here, so they're ready for you to use. So if you wanted to read a digital magazine, a digital newspaper, you can grab one of these and have a seat anywhere in the library. This is the first self-checkout system in one of our public libraries. We chose to implement them just for I guess, privacy primarily, and just for ease of use for people. So if we scan a card and put in our PIN, we can check out material, you can check something out, or you can check on your account. When you're done with the item, you get a little receipt.
So this is the makerspace?
This is the makerspace, and it's our first sort of dedicated makerspace. We're really excited about it. There's a lot of programming that we'll be able to do here. You can see we've got a unit set up really for recording, for podcasting, or recording maybe an RPM. If someone was interested, we're going to keep expanding that with some new technology, but there's a nice interface, nice mics, headphones and monitors. We've got 3D printers, and then we've also added a few things. Because we've got a solar panel here, we thought it'd be really fun to have a hydroponic garden. So we've partnered with Succeed and we brought that unit in. We're also going to be setting up a composter, a Lomi, pretty soon as well. So yeah, it's really exciting. Carolyn, there's like a traditional sort of, closed sort of children's area here. We tried to balance having some separation so that we can have, programming and different events happening simultaneously. So we have multiple community programming rooms. So this one's set up for story times. But then the wider library hall around us, everything is set on wheels. It's all mobile. So if we want to expand out into here and do something large or have a huge children's program that takes up the whole hall, we have a lot of space to do it.
Lots to offer. So if someone wants to come by tomorrow and check it out, what time is it opening?
Sure, 10 to 6 tomorrow. So we'll be open at 10 a.m. Same thing on Friday, same thing on Saturday. And then the week after that will be on regular hours, where some evenings will be open until 9 p.m., including Friday.
Great. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Well, speaking of library openings, that got us wondering about the last time a public library opened its doors in the province. And that happened to be more than 10 years ago in Corner Brook. That library started lending books in December 2011, but officially held its grand opening in the summer of 2012. Here's a look back at Jeremy Eaton's report.
We have close to 4,000 DVDs in our collection right now.
Corner Brook City Librarian schools the Minister of Education on what the new library has to offer. They are keeping up with changing trends, offering e-books, DVDs, audiobooks. The Big Bright Book Lender opened up in December. Since then, things have been going well.
Well, I would say it's a lot busier, that's for one. We've got a lot more patrons. At least on my last count, there was at least 1,500 more patrons since we moved.
Clyde Jackman and some of his colleagues showed up for the ceremony, as well as many of the people who take advantage of the services offered.
It's very encouraging, and I think they continue to go up each month, and I'm expecting there to be more. We haven't even been here in a year yet, and we're somewhere around 8,200 patrons.
The library offers a ton of programs for all ages. Free internet access to card holders, a floor for children, thousands of titles, books that were moved by the people who help you sign them out.
The staff were completely responsible for doing the complete move. All of the shelving was in place here, but they had to pack up all the books, move them to this location, and they did so in the space of a month.
Paperbacks and hardcovers fill the shelves, even with people switching to handheld reading devices. If this place is any indication, there is still a need for public libraries.
A lot of people sometimes ask the question, are libraries as relevant anymore in this digital age when you can download books and all that sort of thing? But frankly, I think we are, because we offer those services as well.
Prince says she's hopeful the numbers will continue to grow and that more people will sign up for library cards. The unofficial goal right now, to try to get to 10,000 members by the end of the year. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, Corner Brook.
We've raised rates rapidly, and now it's time to pause and assess whether monetary policy is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation back to the 2% target.
Well, the Bank of Canada has raised a key interest rate. It's now 4.5%, up a quarter of a percentage point. It's the 8th time in less than a year that the central bank has hiked its trend-setting rate. The bank says it's not planning any more increases. We'll have more national and international news just ahead. Well, our colleague Adam Walsh at CBC Radio's Crosstalk certainly let the show go to the dogs today. They were talking about all things dog-related, including the Elder Dog Canada program. It's a community-based nonprofit charity that helps older people with the care and well-being of their canine companions. Take a look.
Certainly, it's a very important organization because we assist and support older adults in the care and well-being of their dogs, their canine companions. And so really, we want to continue that support of the animals and their seniors, usually at times when a senior may be struggling with trying to care for their animal, whether it be because of sickness or hospitalization, or maybe a senior needs to be relocated to long-term care, for example. And it's that peace of mind and sense of security that the senior would have in knowing that their beloved dog is being cared for while they're away or while they're sick.
I'm very privileged to be able to be a dog walker for a rather famous tiger who you'll hear about.
Well, let's talk about Tiger. I want to welcome Mr. Ken Mercer.
Our children, I guess, decided that we need a bit of companionship to break this void. And so they presented us with a Chihuahua. And I thought, well, Chihuahua, for all they do is bark, But I found out that the Chihuahua is a very loving dog. And very smart, surprisingly. And so it's blended in very well with us. Now, my wife is not able to take the dogs out for walks or anything like that. So during the winter months, it's a little difficult to get the exercise going. It's a double whammy. The dog gets to walk and comes back full of vim and vigor, and then slumps down and rests. And we get a chance to socialize and talk to new people, and usually pleasant people because they're interested in dogs too.
I liked what Ken said about it being a double whammy because it's a tremendous opportunity for the volunteers associated with Elder Dog to be able to connect with wonderful people. I had never met Pat and Ken Mercer before and had never met Tiger. I have a border collie that I adore, and I can tell you I have made room in my heart for Tiger as well. He's a lovable little fellow, and the reciprocal benefits are certainly to be celebrated. There's a great opportunity to feel good about volunteering and doing things in the community.
Canada's two national airlines appear to be turning more of their attention to their regional services. Air Canada has been cutting back on its routes in the western part of the country, while WestJet is trimming back on eastern routes. The CBC's Kyle Bax explains.
There has been quite a bit of attention on Air Canada making the decision to cut direct flights between Calgary and Saskatoon and also between Calgary and Regina. We've heard of many other cancelled routes, so we dug a little deeper. We looked at the schedules of both Air Canada and WestJet and compared it to the same time of year in 2019. Since then, both airlines have cut dozens of routes. For instance, out of Calgary, Air Canada no longer flies directly to 9 different cities, such as Medicine Hat and Victoria. Meanwhile, WestJet has made quite a few cuts in eastern Canada, specifically between Toronto and Montreal. It has slashed the amount of seats by about 80%. The trend is pretty clear. WestJet prioritizing the prairies and Air Canada concentrating on the east, especially Toronto and Montreal. Part of the reason why is because of competition from smaller airlines. There are new entrants that have been launched, and some of the existing players are expanding. Experts say this strategy by Air Canada and WestJet helps fend off competition.
The Canadian industry is growing by the number of players, but there is some moves afoot by the established carriers to kind of say, okay, we will create our own little fortresses and we'll manage those fortresses and we'll try to build our strengths around those fortresses.
That's one reason why Air Canada and WestJet are becoming a bit more regional. The other consideration is financial. The airlines are still carrying debt from the pandemic, and air travel hasn't fully recovered. So the airlines are trying to keep expenses in check as they compete for passengers. And that's why the two dominant players are focusing so much on their home turfs. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet have wrapped up their 3-day retreat in Hamilton, Ontario. The session was dominated by the economy and healthcare, and today the Prime Minister announced he's invited the premiers to Ottawa on February 7th to talk about a new healthcare deal. But he says this is a first step.
It'll be a good moment for us to gather, but we're not going to be signing deals on that particular moment. It'll be about starting the very direct hard work of the bilateral arrangements that will happen with every province.
Trudeau says the federal government wants to move away from a one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare funding. He says there will still be some national elements, but much of the new plan will be tailored to the individual needs of each province and territory. The premiers have been calling on Ottawa to increase its share of healthcare budgets from around 22% to 35%. Well, for 9 days every January, a normally sleepy and quiet village high in the Swiss Alps is filled with hot air. An unusual feature of this event is the unique winds that change direction during the day. They allow the balloons to fly out in one direction in the morning and then turn around and fly back in the opposite direction in the afternoon. And stay tuned. Ashley will tell us about some changing winds here in this province coming up. Well, time for the long range forecast, and it seems like a lot of weather to talk about, a lot of warnings for tomorrow evening. Lots going on.
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon we have lots of wind warnings in place, rainfall warnings as well as snowfall warnings for parts of Labrador. And that's going to continue for a good chunk of Thursday. Let's take a look at the outlook for Thursday evening into Friday. This is when we'll really start to see that mild air move in through the overnight period, especially for the eastern portion of the province. But in behind that system, we do have some cold air associated with it, so it'll change back over to some snow for the west coast, and then it'll continue for coastal areas of Labrador. This is where we'll see most of the snow. Again, between 15 to 25 centimeters is certainly possible. That will eventually pull out into the afternoon on Friday, but those temperatures are going to dip, especially for the west coast, and eventually they will dip across the province as well, or at least across the island. 4, 5, 6, or 7 degrees through the first half of the day, but they will be dropping as the day goes on. As far as Labrador is concerned, coastal areas and along the strait, again, you'll be hovering just below zero for the most of the day, but we get back into that colder air again. Lab City will see a daytime high of about -20 through the day on Friday. Now, as we head into Saturday, looking at a fairly quiet start to the day, but we will see some snow move back in for Lab West and then towards northern Labrador as the afternoon rolls through. Not a whole lot happening otherwise across the province, just clouds on the increase through the day. We may see some snow develop later on in the afternoon, but I do have that sun icon in there for you, and those temperatures are into the minus single digits. So not a bad start to Saturday for sure. Up across Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures dropping eventually, especially through Cartwright down to -13, but then moderating for Lab City, so only about -11. So you're definitely on a roller coaster ride as far as the temperatures are concerned. Taking a look at the long range forecast, we're back up above zero by Sunday and Monday. Might see some showers again through the afternoon on Monday for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. For Central, you're looking at some sunshine Saturday. Sunday, Monday looks a bit messy at this point. That should be flurries for those of you in the west coast as your temperature hovers around 1 degree but then drops like a rock into the evening hours. -10 will be your afternoon, your overnight low rather. And then for eastern Labrador, just some flurries late Saturday into early Sunday, but then sunshine. That's also going to come with a bit of a warm up, but then dropping down to -22 for Monday. Look, your overnight low -36. And then for western Labrador, you're in a cold snap as well as far as those overnight lows are concerned. By Saturday, you're talking about temperature near -11 and then dropping to -30 and then hovering between -20s and -40s as we head through early next week. I just want to share this photo. I love this one. This is Hugo, and he is enjoying the sunshine on the trails. Pamela shared that great shot with us. If you have any weather photos, send them to my Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is adorable. It fits in nicely with the CBC Crosstalk video that we had on earlier in the show about the dogs. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.